Why is it really important to make sure that our trees and shrubs, but especially our trees, are happy during low water times of the year? When you have a lawn, for example, you might have a root zone this deep, but trees will often have root zones that are 3 feet or more, and sprinklers won't do it. We're going to show you a really nice drip system that is easy to use and adaptable to any situation you have, as well as a great DIY option using a bucket. When you have an existing drip system that you can tie into, one of the quickest options is to get the 1/4 inch soaker tubing. You simply attach it. You've already got it on a drip system, probably with your pressure reducer already in place. This is really quick. Sometimes you need something a little bit more serious. This guy is still soaker tubing, still is drip, and it evenly oozes and weeps along the whole length. And you get to attach it directly to your hose. The key is you need to have a pressure reducer. These are always less than $10, and it goes here and then attaches to your hose. Even if you turn your hose on very, very low, just a trickle, the pressure is too high for something like this and you risk ripping out the soaker tubing. So get the pressure reducer. Where you place the water to keep your trees healthy is critical. And what we're looking for is placing your water at the drip edge, also known as the canopy edge. In other words, the very furthest reaches of those branches is where the water goes. All of your watering, drip or not, always goes at the drip end for one very important reason. When it rains, that's where rain naturally collects and falls. If you have the water closer to the trunk, that's not where his thirsty roots are, and you're adding water unnecessarily. Water drips, collects on those leaves, and falls at that edge. That's what you have to recreate when you get home with your trees. Sometimes, of course, there are a few things in the way of getting it perfectly at that canopy edge. For example, you might have a walkway, a sidewalk. Do the best you can. Get that irrigation out as far away from the trunk as possible. Another thing that might get in the way is if you have some weed fabric. When you have weed fabric, it's always preferable to have your irrigation underneath the weed fabric. The same with mulch, wood chips and the like. Have your irrigation under it. That will keep your irrigation system from not being damaged by UV rays. And if you have it on top of the mulch or on top of the fabric, you're going to spend an extra 10, 20, 30 minutes getting through all that mulch before you finally start getting the water in the soil. Put it underneath. What is really critically different about drip as opposed to using sprinklers is, number one, you might have restrictions and you're only allowed to use your sprinklers twice a week. When you use drip, and check with your water provider to be sure, drip is allowed 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, because it is that slow, that perfect, that targeted. There is no runoff, no loss to evaporation, no loss to the wind, and you get the whole root zone and nothing else. The trick becomes, how do you know if you left the water on long enough? And we've all heard that phrase, water long time but not too often. But when you think about it, what does that really mean? You have to find out how your soil accepts water the way you're giving it, and that's done a couple of ways. One, my favorite tool, is your finger. Go ahead and stick it in that soil beneath the surface and make sure that the water went in. Suppose you give it a test. You put out your drip system, your soaker hose, and you turn it on for 10 minutes. Turn it off for 30, let that water finish percolating in, and then stick your finger in the dirt and see how far it went in 10 minutes. If it's clay, I like to say it went about this far. And if it's light and sandy, or you're in Rockland or Granite Bay, it might have gone this far. But now you have an idea of how far your water will go in 10 minutes with drip. Almost everything that you have outside that are trees and bushes have a root zone roughly 3 feet deep. If your water went this far in 10 minutes, how many 10-minute increments do you need? And you'll find yourself, nobody panic, you'll find yourself somewhere between 45 minutes and 5 or 6 hours. Because drip is drip. drips, just drops of water. And it takes a long time to get all that water all the way down without risking runoff. So the price of drip is patience. Sprinklers, we're used to those running for 10 minutes and being done. Sprinklers put out water gallons per minute. These, it takes at least an hour to get a gallon of water. So if you did that little 10-minute test and you found out that in your soil the water went down this far and you need to go down this far, you might be at 2 hours. Now you know how long to leave your drip on for. The next question always is, when do I water again? If you gave that whole root zone all the water that it needs and that tree is able to access all the water it needs all by itself, you do not need to water every day. In fact, it's very important that at the soil surface you use this tool again or a moisture meter. Stick it in the soil, and when it's bone dry, about 2 to 4 inches, you get to water. If you filled that whole area full of water, you stuck your finger in there and it was still moist, and you add water, you have now stressed the plant out. You have added too much water and you're going to see some stress, yellowing leaves, dropping leaves. Just like us, soil and roots need a chance to breathe in between watering. As an example, with clay, because it holds water so well, you might find that you only need to water once every 7 to 14 days. But it could take you as long as 8 hours to do it. Compare that to running the sprinklers for 5-10 minutes and sneaking them on and hoping nobody catches you because things look crummy. When you lay down the irrigation where it belongs, when you find out how your soil accepts water and how it gives up water, you now have a sustainable landscape with healthy soil, which means healthy plants. As promised, we have a DIY option for you. And what it involves is usually a 5-gallon bucket. Anything that you have will work. We need to make a few holes in it. I've chosen a 1/4-inch drill bit, and along the bottom, I'm going to make 2 holes. 1, 2. And then, and it's going to be like this. Ready? And then, each hole, I'm going to cover it with a little piece of duct tape. Why? Because I'm going to flip this over, fill it full of water, and I don't want all the water to come out till I get where it belongs. So you have 2 holes in it. You've covered them with the duct tape. You've added the water. You got to the tree. You took off the duct tape. And then remember, we want this water at the drip edge, the canopy edge, and that's where you're going to place it, and the water is going to slowly come out of the bucket. When that's done, refill the bucket, move it over on the canopy edge to another area, and keep going. This will get you through anything in a pinch, and your trees will be happy. One other option, if you find that water is coming out the bottom and you're not happy, is to make the holes on the side. Cover that with duct tape, fill with water, and it's a lot easier to pull it off. There are many options. Please, feel free to come and see us anytime, and we can answer your questions about how to keep your trees healthy and well watered.